This lesson is 10.2, which is called Common Multiples and Least Common Multiple. You will have two objectives. Your first objective is to 1. Explain what a common multiple is, and 2. Determine the least common multiple of two numbers. First thing you have to know is that common multiples are just the answers of numbers being multiplied with each other. So to find common multiples, we usually just rely on skip counting. You can see right here in this page that I am trying to find common multiples of the number 6 and of the number 8. And to do that, I'm just going to start skip counting. So I have 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36, 42, 48. Pretty much all I did each time was just go ahead and add 6 each time. The second number that I was finding common multiples for was the number 8. And to do that, you'd go ahead and just start by 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, 48, 56, 64. These are all common multiples of the number 8. And to find them, you can also just take the number 8 and add 8 to it each time to find all of its common multiples. Once again, making a list for two numbers is very helpful when you're trying to determine the least common multiple. So that's what I decided to do in this example, was to first just find all my common multiples of both numbers. The next thing you do when finding common multiples is circle the ones that both numbers have in common. So I'm going to observe and see if 6 and 8 have any numbers that overlap with their own individual common multiples. I can see here that number 6 has 24, and 8 has 24 as a multiple as well. So that would be considered a common multiple. If I keep looking through my list of numbers, I can also see that 48 is a number that both 6 and 8 have in common. So two common multiples of 6 and 8 are 24 and 48. Finally, when we're trying to decide what the least common multiple is, which is your main objective for this lesson, you would still continue finding all the common multiples of numbers, but your least common multiple is the smallest number that two numbers have in common. So going back to my example, I know that both 6 and 8 have common multiples of 24 and of 48. However, my least common multiple, which is also known as the LCM, would be the smallest multiple that both of these numbers of 6 and 8 have in common. And in this case, the answer is going to be 24. Therefore, the least common multiple of 6 and 8 is 24. Steps for finding the least common multiple. You may want to write this on your notes page. Number 1, find the common multiples of both numbers. So let's say that I'm trying to find the common multiples of 4 and 5. I would go ahead and make a list of 4, and then I would go ahead and make a list of multiples of 5. So my list of 4 would be something like 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24. I usually like to go out at least 5 or 6 numbers until one of them starts to overlap. My multiples for 5 would be 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and 30. Step number 2, circle the multiples that both numbers have in common. So as I'm scanning my list of multiples of 4 and 5, I can see that the first number they have in common is 20. And as I look through both of these lists, I can see that really is the only number that overlaps. Step number 3, the smallest number that they both have in common is the least common multiple. So for the numbers 4 and 5, the LCM is going to be the number 20. Let's try a few more problems. First, find the least common multiple of 7 and 5. This isn't a practice problem, but you can always pause and see if you can do this on your own if you feel like you have a good understanding so far. First thing I'm going to do is list the multiples of both 7 and 5. they would look like this: 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, 42. My multiples of 5 would be 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. Next, I'm going to see if they have any numbers that are in common or overlap. The only numbers that I can see would be 35 for both 7 and 5 being included in its multiples. Therefore, the least common multiple of 7 and 5 would be 35. Let's try another problem. This time I want you to find the least common multiple of 3 and 9. I'm going to go ahead and start skip counting with 3's. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. Next I'm going to skip count with 9. 9, 18, 27. I can kind of already stop there because as I'm looking at my multiples of 3 and 9, it looks like both 3 and 9 can fit into the number of 9. That is the smallest or least number that they both have in common in terms of multiples. So the LCM of 3 and 9 would be 9. Have an understanding of the least common multiple that you can now do this problem on your own. Feel free to pause and complete this problem. Sticking with my steps, I'm going to go ahead and make a list of common multiples of both 4 and 6. This one is smart. Some students like to do 4 times 6 and say the least common multiple is 24, but that doesn't always work, and that's why I wanted to do this problem with you. If I'm going to do the multiples of 4, you would have 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. Your multiples of 6 are 6, 12, 18, 24, and 30. Notice that the least common multiple is not 24, but it is actually 12. So, least common multiple of 4 and 6 is 12. Last problem. Find the least common multiple of 2 and 8. Feel free to pause. First, I'm going to find my multiples of 2, and then my multiples of 8. So I'm just going to start skip counting. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Next, going to find my multiples of 8, 16, and well, looks like I can already stop already because the smallest number they both have in common is actually the number 8. Therefore, your LCM of the numbers 2 and 8 would be 8. Feel free to circle the smiley face of how you feel about today's lesson and make sure you write a question so that I can answer it tomorrow.